Welcome to Chords and Curves. I'm your host, Blue Sirens. On today's episode, I talk with Fergmethazine about their upcoming album, Tope Rope Files. We talk about the album's inspiration and how the MPC has shaped his approach to music. Listen in. Hey man, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I had to kind of stop you from talking before we hit the record button because I'm like, man, this guy is dropping so many good stories and so many good things that I feel like people want to actually hear and learn about. Especially, I feel like you've got a very unique perspective, especially on your music creation aspects that I personally want to learn more about and dive into about here in a little bit. But uh, you really caught my attention. I know like we got connected through a mutual friend, but the last album you
That's out,
released,
Foggy. Yeah.
yeah. The last time you released Eternal Grace, he was like, yeah, I mean, you messaged me about it, I think, after he connected us, and I listened to it, and I was like, man, I don't feel like I've heard music that's made like this in a while, but I really like it. And I feel like we'll get into a separate tangent later on. But I feel like this element of hip hop that you're bringing with Eternal Grace, and now with your new album that you've got coming out, uh, the Tope Rope Files, there's
Yeah.
some really good like hip hop elements that I feel like aren't used that much very often, and maybe people have forgotten about, or it's just not what the kids are into these days, like you said before we started recording. But I mean, coming off of Eternal Grace, what made you go into Tope Rope Files? Like, what was your inspiration switching? Because I feel like those themes are very different.
Yeah. Going into the Top Rope Files, man, it was really just diving back into all the things that interested me as a young man. Like my formative years. Like I grew up watching wrestling with my dad. Uh, I got into a lot of the more southern hardcore hip hop through my dad, and like finding stuff on the internet like Dipset and watching old BET, and it's just old movies, old media that I just like to revisit every now and again. It just inspires me so much. And Eternal Grace was more so a bit of a love letter to my religion, to God in a sense. Like I just wanted to make something that was cohesive because I felt like that was a big problem with my other projects is like cohesion. Like, were the tracks good? Yeah. Did they flow? Not so much.
Mhm.
So with Eternal Grace, that was my first one to be like, I was listening to Rush at the time, and I had listened to Moving Pictures, uh, one of my favorite albums by them. And most of their stuff's concept, but Moving Pictures was just a good, cohesive album of mostly hits. And that's kind of what I was going for with Eternal Grace. And the same thing has been translated over. Personally, I think, I haven't, every time I listen through the Top Rope Files, like I never skip through it because I'm just like, man, this thing's actually flowing. It's leading up to something. And then boom, at the end, you get that outro. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. That was it. Like credits are rolling.
No, I totally hear you because like you were gracious enough to give me a sneak preview of the Top Ropes File album, and I put it on in the background while I was cleaning my house, and that's normally when I like to listen to music and kind of really absorb it because I know my brain's focused on cleaning, but like in the background, I'm like I can really absorb all the textures and things. And when that last track came on, I was like, that's already the last track. And the sample you use for like I think it's like a Windows shutdown sample or whatever it is. But I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, if this isn't the last track, this guy's got me played, or he's thrown it back to like that old school 8 minute long last track before we knew how long tracks were, and there's like a hidden track in here or something. But
Yeah.
uh that leads me to a really good aspect I wanted to ask you. You use a ton of samples in this album.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like sampling a beat or anything like that. There's a lot of vocal samples in this. How did
Yeah.
you go about finding some of these samples and saying that's the one I want to use?
I always, I've always wanted, ever since my early days in SoundCloud, like 10 years ago in college, salad days with the boys, just like figuring out FL, trying to make stuff that we thought sounded cool and maybe, blow up on the internet, blow up on SoundCloud. I've always wanted to make like cinematic beats. I always wanted somebody to like to see a scene, to set a scene and just have it play out, and just like, oh man, this one makes me think about, with Tony Meets Sosa, the single, for instance. It's one of those things where it's like it's got that crazy flute at the beginning, and it's just that talk between Tony and Sosa about like, hey, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And then when the beat drops, you're just like, you're in it. You are Tony, you are the guy like on the beach somewhere, like in this like mountainous region. Just, I always wanted to feel like someone's inside of the beat and like just in a scene, just chewing the scenery.
Yeah,
You know,
I feel like you really captured that on this album because when I think about music and especially making music or listening to music, my mind tends to kind of go like, well, where would I see this music being played? Like, would it match up in a movie really well? Or, where is it going to match up in my life where I'm like, oh, I need this song for this moment because it's going to have that energy I need for those times. And I feel like your songs do a really good job of like placing themselves to where like I can see, oh, that's where I want to play this song. But also not just in my life, but I feel like in movies because the last time I really think I can remember being like, man, this is the right hip hop song for this scene or whatever it was either the Ninja Turtles animated movie or watching Luke Cage on Netflix because
oh man,
those they really encompass like what's going on in those scenes or like if there's a fight that's about to go down. But I could hear either from the samples you chose or just from like the energy from the music itself that man there are some really good scenes or good opportunities to place these songs over just people being silent and you'll just get what the energy from this music is trying to convey for the scene. Is that something you kind of thought about like when you go into like writing music is like all right what scene do I want to set for someone with this song or does it kind of just like you write it and you're like, man, this would be really great over here?
it starts to build on itself. It'll start with most of the time. It's interesting enough. Like most of the time, the vocal samples and whatnot they come afterwards. While I'm making it, I'll be like, oh man, like I remember when I was watching this like a couple weeks back, like what was that scene? And then I'll finish the beat and go look it up, and or I'll just go and watch the movie and just save the beat, just leave the MPC running, and I'll just go back, chop it up, and be like, this fits perfectly. This will convey this and that, and boom. What really. I've always been a fan of musical scores. Have you ever seen the show Afro Samurai, the old animated joint?
This sounds really familiar. I feel like you're triggering a distant memory for me.
It was on Spike TV back in the day, and it was like a story about the number one samurai who's always being hunted, and there's the whole track. Sorry, the whole backtracking was I think I might be incorrect, but I think it might have been done by the RZA, and so every scene made sense when the music would kick in and the beats would drop in the middle of the sword slash and everything. That was just like a huge inspiration to me, and also MF Doom and all those old skits from like the Death Row days of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and whatnot, and Dipset, and all these people used to have these skits and little things, and I figured if I could like sprinkle that into my music, maybe it would give it that same magic that I used to feel when I still turn those tracks on to this day.
Yeah, and I no, I totally agree. And you were right. It was RZA. He did do the soundtrack for Afro Samurai. And as soon as I saw an image, I'm like, I know I've seen a clip of this here or there, like on YouTube throughout my life. But now I got to go back and dive a little bit deeper into it and see how they've mashed up like the music with the visuals. And
Yeah, I think it was all original music for the. I think he made all original music for the show, and it's amazing.
I gotta check it out then, or like unlock some of these memories that I've got stored away. But
Yeah,
one thing like is kind of difficult for sampling, which I feel like maybe it's just practice, or maybe you've just mastered it, or you're just naturally good at it. Could be all three. Uh, that sampling, like placing it inside a song, especially if it's like a vocal one. Like I feel like people get the habit of like, oh, I just click it and like have it stutter and then it's good. And I feel like it's hard to kind of be like, you got to have the right sample, But like to
Yeah.
make it not just be a stutter and then have the rest of it play, I feel like that's our default for when we go to sampling. So either for people that are just trying to get into sampling, it sometimes is like, well, do I just play the clip or do I do the stutter? But like, are there other options out there for people to kind of like be like, oh, how do I like use a sample in a song?
For like vocal samples from like different media, I would definitely suggest. I'm a big movie guy. I'm a big details guy. So like I remember certain things that just people do not care about. You know what I mean? Like, and one of those things is like, oh, was there music playing during that scene that I'm thinking of? And I'll go back and look it up, and boom, turns out no, there wasn't, or it's very little, enough to where you can mix it out on your own. You know, and it's just it's all about the flow. You know, like when I'm making these instrumentals, it's like it's not like I have a rapper in mind or anything. Sometimes I do have a rapper in mind, like someone I'm working with. But for the most part, it's just like, man, if somebody were to get on this, they could just make a hit out of this. And that's how I really feel. And like, and, you could call it a little bit of arrogance or something, but I don't know. I believe in my music, and I think there's definitely a way to look at the details of what you're doing, and you can easily add it into a song, but you gotta pay attention to the small stuff, because when you don't, you got music clashing with your intro, and next thing you know, the beat drops and everybody's confused, and just kind of like, once you throw someone's vibe off from the beginning of the song, you kind of lost them. My whole thing
Yeah.
is like throwing the hook out there, and boom, once they are like, oh, I remember that song, beat drop, first verse.
Yeah. And I feel like you mentioned earlier, like people like on SoundCloud, I'm thinking like back in like 2009, 2010, I think a lot of people were trying to put these like things that were kind of like the early TikTok sounds, like the trending sounds from Vine or like sampling someone from Vine to be like, oh, look, I put it on a song. It's going to blow up because it's a sample that everyone knows. And now we're kind of like, it's not that hard to do that, but also like the trending audio changes so fast that's like, well, you want something that's going to be a little bit more powerful to
Yeah,
stay around if you're going to be using a sample like that with it. And I feel like with hip hop, especially with your music, there's a lot of rejection, I think, against like what the kids are into with your music. And that in no way is a bad thing. I think that's a good thing because like just do what you love and someone's gonna be a fan of it. Just got it's a little bit harder to find it if it's not what's trending at the moment. But
yeah.
like all your songs on this album, none of them are like less than 2 minutes, I think. Maybe the outro is, but all of them are a good length from what I
There's
remember looking at it. And so I
I
was
think
curious, like
I think Dior sweatsuit. That's the shortest one.
Dior Sweatsuit. See, that's my favorite track. Not because it's short. I was just like, oh man, these got some good synths on it. Uh, but or wait, is it Dior Sweatsuit or is it I think it might be Nylon Sweater. Uh,
No, that's not on there. No,
that's not on there. What am I thinking of? Maybe it was
there's.
your. Yeah, it is that one. It is your sweatsuit. I was thinking of something else that uh something else popped up and I was like, oh yeah, that's gotta be his because it's like a clothing thing. Uh But did you feel any pressure when you're making this album to be like, I gotta make sure these songs are certain lengths, or uh, did that even come into your mind at all during the creation process?
uh, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it does come up. There are times when I'm done making my instrumentals. Most of the time, I play them along with a stopwatch to see how long they're gonna be, because everybody's attention spans have just been shrinking. It's crazy. It's all short form content. Like, oh, people think, I don't know. Some people still think it's strange that I'll sit back and watch something like $1 million worth of game. It's like a 2.5 hour video. But I will. I'll watch it. I'll put it on while I'm at work or something, still getting things done, just to have something, because I still enjoy long form content. Like, maybe not so much with movies, because everybody wants to be Scorsese nowadays, and every movie's 3 hours long. But I remember in the early, like in growing up, every movie was either an hour and a half or an hour and 45, and you were in, you were out, and you were just like, man, that was great, you know. and I kind of wanted to translate that to my music. Like I used to my music on SoundCloud, if you check it out, it's all very long and drawn out, and it just goes forever and ever. And like, you can tell I just didn't have a direction going. So now I want my intent to be when someone hears this, they want to put a verse on it. Everybody, it's what is it from Hustle and Flow? Everybody has a verse to contribute. And when I get people to listen to my music, I want them to have that feeling like, man, I could see somebody, if not me myself, just like I want lyrics over this. And I feel like that's like the my biggest intent, and I feel like that's it's what instrumentals are for. Sometimes they're good to live on their own, but for the most part, yeah, you want somebody to rap over your music. And yeah, I don't know. When it comes down to it, like 2.5 to 3 minutes, that's just kind of where I want to keep it. I want to keep it like that hour and a half action movie. You're
Yeah.
in, you're out. Everybody knows how Crank ends. You know what I mean? Like, there's no question about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like, I mean, even like 2.5 sometimes feel like it might be too long, but like I feel like, I mean, like in the 2000s or so, I mean, I listened to a lot of rock music back then, but like most songs were like 3.5 minutes. If it was
Yeah,
like 4.5, people are like, ah, you can't play this on radio or, but the truth of the matter, is if the song's good, it's,
yeah.
it's going to get played.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think I think it's interesting that how you said just now that you use the stopwatch to measure how long your songs are. And I'm guessing that's because you use an MPC for
yeah,
creating your beats. Cause like, oh, my DAW just shows it up here at the top, but you use an MPC, which is also very like rejection of like what I feel like people are seeing on social media. It's always someone's laptop and their screen and all their tech and stuff. But I mean, you
yeah.
got it all in one box. Uh, how has that been kind of carrying around an MPC anytime you want to make music? And like people's reaction when you just pull it out and you're like, hey man, we're good to go right here.
It's interesting, man. Like, I love that machine, and it's brought the level of my music up just so exponentially. You know, like a few years ago, whenever our mutual friend introduced us, I had showed you my Sad Stunner Island album, and you were like, "Dude, it's good," but like, there's times where the kicks just it's there, and then there's other times where it's not even present, man. Like, what's going on here? And I sat back and thought about that a lot, like afterwards. And at a certain point in time, it was kind of interesting. I had never watched a video on the MPC or seen anybody use it. I knew what it was from researching Jay Dilla, but then all of a sudden, I just started getting all these YouTube ads, not ads, YouTube videos for like, hey, setting up your first MPC, or like, hey, cooking up on the MPC. And I was just like, the MPC, man. And then I looked into it more. It's like, oh, Madlib used it. Jay Dilla used it. Like Arab Music, The Alchemist. All these people that I love their music were using the MPC, and they have classic, timeless stuff. You know. And I thought to myself, well, what would I be doing if I weren't trying to make classic, timeless music? I don't want to just sit back and be the trendy guy who they forget about in 5 years. You know, I want people to turn my music on, keep it in a playlist, and just whenever it shuffles on, be like, oh man, let me throw that album back on, man. Because I'm turning into an album guy. I've been listening to a bunch of prog rock and stuff from the 80s, where it goes back to the last question. Sometimes they're 10, 15-minute songs, and you don't even realize by the time it's over, you're like, I've been sitting here for forever just washing these dishes, and it's only been this one song, but it's been a journey. you know the NPC is great, man. Like, people always look at me like I just brought out a piece of alien technology. They're like, what is that, and what are those pads? Can I touch it? That's a kick. Can I do a little kick snare hi-hat real quick? And then I just see their faces light up as they start touching the pads. But it's a modern NPC. It's not a 2000 XL or the J Dilla 2500 or anything. It's got a touch screen. It's a dog in a box, which is really nice. They've upgraded it to MPC 3.0, which I don't use because I learned the 2.0 workflow, and it
Mm,
took me forever to learn the 2.0 workflow. So I'll be damned if I go to something new and when I'm still learning, you know, like that's the beauty of this machine is like it does so much that like you're never done quite learning what it can do. And
yeah.
I mean, you know, this producer meetup I went to today, everybody was very surprised when I told them that I mixed and mastered inside the MPC as well. You know, because these were all people on DAWs, Ableton, Reason, Logic, all that, you know. And yeah, it's my pride and joy. I treat it like a treasure, and I keep it dusted and keep it clean. And you know, this thing has elevated my music to a point to where those around me who've been listening to my music forever are like, dude, once you got that thing, you went to the next level. You know, so it's a great little piece of machinery. I suggest anybody who's looking for a way to get away from just producing solely on a laptop, I would say, you know, get yourself an MPC, find a cheap one, find a used one, an old one, a new one. Just give it a try. You'd be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, as soon as you said, "Oh, I made this on an NPC," I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." Because when I was looking at just the waveform on some of the songs, I was like, "Man, it's just a square at times because there's so
Yeah,
much stuff going on." But I'm like, he's got to be using something because nothing's clipping. But once you said NPC, I was like, "Oh, it's just the NPC is like every DAW has like its own kind of like signature sound or signature something that like only it has, and you put it on, you're like, hey, it just works, it just sounds good. I'm not here to question it. And then once you say NPC, I'm like, okay, it's got its own set of stuff that like nobody questions. They're just like, it works, it sounds good, it's NPC. And
yeah,
yeah, and I feel like that's probably a bit of the mastering in it because it sounds good. It looks like it should be clipping based on the waveform, but it's not. And all the volumes for everything are solid. Like I kept thinking, is this kick going to be too loud coming up when I'm looking at the waveform, or is the hi hats a little bit out of control? But like everything level wise sounds pretty solid on the album, just from like
yeah,
a mixing and mastering standing point. But nothing also like feels like it bleeds into each other. Like everything's EQ'd really well, so everything has like its own space in the sonic spectrum. So props to you, man. Like I would have
Hey,
to
thank you.
agree with everyone that's like, yeah, when you get the NPC, you moved up because I feel like was Eternal Grace made on NPC?
Yeah, Eternal Grace, both of the volumes of If You Cook It That Way and God Willing. God Willing was the first one that I made using the NPC. It's a little rough, but it's got some good stuff on there still.
Because I have to agree with the whoever said you upgrade when you got the NPC. I definitely think you did because the stuff sounds really good.
Thank you,
Which
man.
yeah, which by the way, like I know, and maybe it's because of the NPC or because of like the albums you've been listening to, but like there's always a theme. I feel like when it comes with albums and like Eternal Grace, I feel like had one like you said earlier, is like that love letter, and then Top Rope Files has the wrestling kind of theme, things like you grew up with, like your dad doing stuff with. What are some other themes you think you might want to explore with future albums?
For the next one, you know, listening to so much like late 70s and 80s prog rock and jazz fusion and stuff like that, like there's always this feeling of like the existential, you know, like the cosmic feeling and like what's next and spirituality and things of that nature. So for the next project, I've kind of just been, you know, sowing the seeds of those ideas, you know, like a look into, I don't know, spiritual existentialism. Like that's a mouthful to say, but still, you know, uh, I I'm thinking about just having themes moving forward because it makes the projects more cohesive and it makes me a more focused person when I'm working on my music rather than just having this here, that there, this sounds like this one's influenced by that. You know, if I can hone in on a single theme or a couple of single themes and create a good project that flows well, that's kind of what I want to do from now on. And I mean, I'm working with a rapper right now, More Texas, and his is the project we have coming out is called Third Coast Love Story, and it's just there's some R&B, there's some hard hitting like southern sounding stuff, but like it's all still kind of got when I'm creating something for him, I keep that theme of like it's a Third Coast love story. It's a love letter to the South, like particularly Texas, but
Nice. Yeah, no, I definitely think like I'm almost done writing my first album now, wrapping it up. And I feel like just like you said, when you got that theme, it really helps you create a good filter of like this doesn't need to be here. Or if you like what you're working on, but it doesn't match the theme, it's like, all right, we'll file this away, come back to this later when we're ready to be on that theme or just need something good side quest to explore. But the
yeah,
album is going to be coming out soon. A week from actually, what is it? A week from today, it's going to be out. No, a week from yesterday,
yeah,
the 15th.
yeah. August 15th. It's going to be on all digital streaming platforms.
Nice.
Top Rope Files. Yeah, it's going to be
Copper.
beats that drop like elbows, man.
And where can people stay up with you and check out more music that you've got coming out in the future?
Mostly I've gotten rid of social media, but I am on Instagram at Fergmethazine. Uh, yeah, if you look up Fergmethazine on Google, it'll bring you to pretty much anything that I'm doing right now. But Instagram is a great way to get in touch with me if you want to collaborate, if you just want to say, "Hey, I listened to the album and these are my thoughts." Like that's cool with me too, man. Like I've made my profile public, and it's pretty much just a business page right now. But I do interact with everybody in my life through it. I'm not that big or Hollywood or anything like that. So, but the album is available also earlier than the 15th. If people want to check out the album on Bandcamp, just fergmethazine.bandcamp.com, Top Rope Files. Give it a listen. If you feel like supporting, if the spirit moves you, that would be great, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and if you want to check it out, we're gonna have links to that album in the description below, as well as all of your socials. And I've got to say, you're gonna enjoy this album. If you're a fan of hip hop, I think you're really gonna like it. I think the samples you chose on this made me chuckle a little bit at times. So I'm like, oh, I know where that's from. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I like this song even more because of that sample. So we didn't talk about what samples there really are, except for one, because I want that to be a surprise. And I hope you enjoy listening to Top Row Files as much as I do. It's going to be out August 15th, but it's going to be out a little bit sooner if you check it out on Bandcamp. And Fergmethazine, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us about your album.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
If you liked this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you enjoy learning more about music, books related to music, and lo-fi music, don't forget to subscribe to me as well. Thanks for listening.